So hello everyone, and welcome to Defenders of Wildlife National Petroleum Reserve Alaska Paint Night. My name is Jen Christofferson, and tonight I have with me our artist Carrie Becker and David Krause, Acting Director of Audubon of Alaska. If this is your first time with us at Paint Night, welcome, and welcome to those returning. It sounds like we had someone here from the Polar Bear Night. If everyone could please drop in the chat where they are zooming in from, that would be great. We just like to see where everybody's from. And tonight's event will be recorded. Just keep that in mind, and please stay on mute unless you have a question or comment. So we'll see where everybody's from. Make sure Maine, North Dakota, New York City. Oh, okay. Lots of East Coasters. Wichita, Kansas. I did the Polar Bear. Oh, cool. Oh yeah, and if you've done a paint night before, feel free to drop that in. Florida. Oh, I bet Florida's warm. New Jersey. Painting in, how do you say that? Geneseo, Illinois? Did I say that wrong? Anaheim, California. Westerville, Ohio. Northern Cali. Oh, it's foggy. Oh, cool. Did the polar, oh, several people did polar bear nights. Oh, hold on. I have people in the waiting room. Let me admit.
Knocking at the door.
Yeah, I can't. I have to open up another screen for admitting folks in.
San Jose, California. Nice. Shout out. My mom's family's from California.
Nice. Okay, perfect. Looks like the chat's working really well. Great. We have quite a variety here, you know. New York, so we got big cities and Ohio, California. Okay. Thank you, everybody. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with Defenders of Wildlife, we were founded in 1947 and are the premier US-based national conservation organization dedicated to the protection and restoration of imperiled species and their habitats in North America. Defenders' approach is direct and straightforward. We protect and restore imperiled species throughout North America by transforming policies and institutions and by promoting innovative solutions. We speak with one voice, informed by scientific, legal, and policy expertise, hands-on wildlife management experience, and effective advocacy. So if you haven't joined us before for Paint Night, I'll just do a real quick layout of how tonight's format will go. First, I'll introduce our artist. She will lead us in painting, basically the background, and that will be kind of the first 5 to 10 minutes. And then during that dry time, we will actually turn the time over to David with Audubon to do a short 10-minute presentation. And then while your painting's drying, David will be presenting, and then we'll turn it back over to Carrie. So hopefully that makes sense to everybody. And just as a reminder, if you're coming into the meeting, make sure that you are on mute. If you're not, I might mute you just so that we don't have some extra background noise. But with that, I will introduce our artist, Carrie. Oh, hold on a second. I got more people in the waiting room. I'm going to admit a few more people here. Okay. Okay. And I'm gonna mute a few people here. Okay, perfect. So intro to Carrie Becker. So Carrie is a local Alaskan artist that enjoys being inspired by nature's textures, colors, and forms. She graduated with a degree in fine arts from the Brigham Young University of Idaho. Currently, she is combining her love of creating art with education and believes that through art's welcoming arms, a love of nature can bring awareness and eagerness to experience the beautiful outdoors. And now I will turn the time over to Carrie, and she will lead us in this very beginning, and then we'll take a quick dry time break with David, and then she will follow up in the end to finish up the painting. So without further ado, there you go, Carrie.
All right. Bring it up. No, I didn't see me.
There we go.
Hey guys, thanks for joining us as we paint today. So hopefully you guys have your canvases set up. The first two colors we're going to be working with first is going to be our turquoise or blue, and then our whites. So you're going to get a good healthy dollop of both of those onto your palette, because we're going to be painting the whole canvas blue and white. So kind of meter out a little bit of each of those depending on the size of your canvas. So, all right, so I'm going to get out some of my white. I'm going to put probably a little bit more white than blue because it's a lighter sky.
I think I'm going to paint over this blue one.
All right, and then we're going to use our large 2-inch brush, or if you have a 1-inch brush, that'll work as well. And what works best for me and what I recommend to everyone is getting your brush wet first before you start painting. And the reason you want to do that is because you want to get up into the heel of the brush and up into where it's bound together. You want to get the water down in there first before the paint, because then that will keep your brushes better for longer. It's way healthier for them. Also makes it easier to clean them out. So, all right, so we're going to start off by mixing a little bit of our white with a little bit of our blue. I'm going to get a nice sky blue color. Okay. All right, I like that. Perfect. So we're going to take that light blue sky color, and we're going to start about 3/4 of the painting. We want our lightest portion to be right through here. And the reason we're doing our lightest portion through here and not up at the top or more towards the bottom is because we're using atmospheric perspective. And what it means essentially is the farther out you're looking through more air. And anytime you look through more air, it's going to get a little less clear, a little bit more muddled. And so that's going to be a little bit whiter. So as you work up, you're going to add more blue into that pile of or that light sky that you had. So we're just going to add in a little bit more each time we move up. So that's my second little inch or two band. Okay, I'm going like that, back and forth strokes. Getting actually some paint on this one, sorry. Watch out what's behind you. Might be getting it wet. And I'm gonna add one more section of turquoise blue to the top. And I'm gonna paint that in like this. All right, back and forth. You can paint waffle texture X's to kind of break up those layers of sections that we did. So I just did it like this so you can see the difference. So this is my first section. You can kind of see a line, whereas when I did the waffle or the X's, I get into those waffles and I blend those colors more, if that makes sense. So I'm just gonna do that same like cross trick through my section right here. And you can kind of see how I'm breaking that up a little bit. And then I can swipe over it and making it nice and continual, making it all, okay? Gives us a nice blend going back and forth, okay? So we're gonna get that done. And then we're gonna do the same reaction essentially, but we're gonna work from our light spot going darker from the middle going down. So you might need to grab more blue. And oh, that was a little dark for myself, sorry. And you're gonna kind of waffle that into your lighter area. And this blend right here doesn't have to be quite as like subtle, because you are going to cover it with a patch of green. So we just want to get it being nice and dark by the time we hit this bottom portion. Okay, guys? So I'm going to add more blue to my palette. All right, there we go. And waffle it out, hit those X's. And this. It's getting darker and darker each time I dip onto my pad. Okay. With those darker colors. Blending it through. And hopefully you're pretty much straight up the turquoise by the time you get to the bottom of your canvas. Okay? Waffle. Back and forth, back and forth.
And don't worry if you're not as fast as Carrie.
I am a
She's
fast
like
painter. I'm trying to
crazy fast.
trying to get to the end so you guys can kind of see where we're headed directional wise that way. And then my last few strokes, I'm just gonna kind of blend all the way up through so that I kind of get those nice sideways streaks. And then kind of secret portion is while your brush, while it's still wet, you're gonna take a little bit of white and you're gonna just randomly brush across your canvas in like sections, just random sections. That'll just be your highlight on top of your water. Just some random ones without direction. I don't want without like thinking about too much where your water's gonna be. I just kind of want you to just randomize it a little bit. And this will give you a little bit of depth and unpredictability, which will help it look more realistic. Okay. So I'll let you guys do that for the next 7-8 minutes. We're gonna have you work on this, and you're gonna just go. You're gonna have a light section, and that's gonna be your horizontal mark where you have most air to look through, and that's gonna be your atmospheric perspective. And then lighter stuff towards that band, and then moving darker as you get towards the bottom. Okay, guys. So leave you guys to do that for the next 7 or so minutes. Okay.
And feel free to drop in the chat if you've finished already, or just give a thumbs up so we can kind of see how we're tracking. Yeah.
All right. So I have dots all over mine now, but
It's snowing.
we can paint over them afterwards. All right, you guys. Hopefully you got to a point where we're nice and even and got some randomized white brush strokes across it. We're gonna have you guys dry this. We need it super dry before we start our next layer. So this is when we're gonna take our hair blow dryers and get them dry, or you can let them air dry the whole time while Dave's talking. And as long as you didn't do paint with this, it should be dry by the end of the 10 minutes. So, all right, Jen, back to you.
Yeah. So just one note, don't keep messing with it
Yes.
while the talk is going on. That's just a little tip.
Yeah.
And then David, if I don't know if you're screen sharing or if you're just going to talk to us, I am going to remove the spotlight here. Oh, there you are.
Yeah. Hey, Jen.
Mhm.
Yeah, I would be great to screen share if possible. Should I do that now?
Here, let me make sure that, can you screen share or do I have to give you permission?
I can screen share.
Okay, perfect.
Let's give it a go here, team.
Map of Alaska in the background. Oh, that's fine.
Let's see. How's that look to you all?
There we go. Looks good.
Oh, can you? Oh, we're okay. Looks good. Yeah, we can see it.
Perfect. I could even try to minimize this further. Great. Well, yeah, thanks, Jen, and thanks for having me. It's wonderful to be with you all this evening. My name is David Krause. I'm the Director of Conservation at Audubon, Alaska. And I have the great privilege of working with the team from Defenders of Wildlife pretty much every day of the week. So it's really great to talk to you this afternoon about the Western Arctic, or how we like to say the poorly named National Petroleum Reserve, Alaska. So over the next maybe 8 or 10 minutes, I could roll through a series of slides that kind of share with you some of the values of the reserve, but also some of the threats that it's facing. So you'll be up to speed and experts now from around the country who are tied into this very unique and interesting landscape. So to kind of kick things off, I think it's important for folks to know kind of why this place is so special. And I think it can really be summed up as maybe we can quickly call the 3 C's: culture, conservation, and climate. So the NPRA, the National Petroleum Reserve Alaska, is the traditional and current homelands of the Inupiat people. And the reserve has irreplaceable cultural and traditional significance. This landscape is absolutely crucial to subsistence resources and practices. And when I say subsistence, I mean the harvest and the preparation and the sharing and the consumption of wild resources for food or other cultural purposes. The reserve also has incredible conservation values of both national and international significance. So this is thriving populations of fish and wildlife and birds, a completely healthy and functioning ecosystem. While fragile from climate change, for sure, it's a place where the processes of water and weathering and the movement of resources is almost entirely intact. And this landscape also hosts and supports species of great conservation concern, which is obviously the great work that Defenders really focuses on. And this deals with polar bears and yellow-billed loons and a handful of others. And then finally, as the name infers, and kind of its high latitude Arctic significance, this landscape also has great significance and importance for climate change and greenhouse gases. So the landscape not only sequesters a lot of carbon and methane, but as we'll get into kind of as this presentation moves forward, it also has commercially viable hydrocarbons in the form of oil and natural gas condensates and natural gas. So this is a map of the reserve. It's a huge landscape. It's the largest federal land unit in the country. It's about 23 million acres in size. It's about the size of Indiana. If you look down kind of in this locator map in the bottom right-hand side, you'll see kind of that darker shape, which is the NPRA, the Western Arctic. So it takes up a pretty large chunk of the North Slope. But here you can see on this map from the Bureau of Land Management, the federal agency that administers and manages this landscape. The reserve is broken up into 5 special areas. And these special areas have been identified for their cultural and conservation significance and their importance. And they all kind of have their own flavor and vibe, and they all help to protect various resources of significance. So Teshekpuk Lake Special Area is something unique to the planet. It's a circumpolar wetlands complex with a very large lake known as Teshekpuk Lake. You can kind of see that here, and I'll show you some other pictures of it as well. But this area, this special area, is incredibly important for avian bird values, but also the calving and insect relief area for one of the North Slopes for caribou herds, the Teshekpuk Caribou Herd. The herd calves around the lake and then uses this lake actually mostly as an overwintering area as well. Kind of on this eastern flank of the reserve is something called the Colville River Special Area. The Colville is a humongous Arctic waterway. It drains about a quarter of the entire North Slope of Alaska. So going back to that locator map, you can see this North Slope here. The Colville River watershed drains about 25% of that whole land area and has incredible importance for fish and Arctic fishes, but also for gyrfalcons and Arctic peregrine falcons. The bluffs along the river on this eastern side of the reserve host some of the highest densities of these birds of prey on the planet, which is incredible. Kind of moving westward in terms of special areas and special values in the reserve is the Yukok River uplands here. This special area, it's unique because it's the calving grounds for the Western Arctic Caribou Herd. The Western Arctic Caribou Herd is the largest caribou herd currently in Alaska. In the early 2000s, the herd peaked at around 450,000 animals. Today, it's much lower, and it is in a time of conservation significance, but it's an incredibly important place for the calving of a caribou herd that supports the subsistence and cultural practices of 40 communities around northern and western Alaska. Fun fact also about the Yukok River uplands is that it has the highest density of wolverine on the planet. And this is primarily because of the Yukok River calving grounds, or the Western Arctic caribou calving grounds, but also because of the topography and the features of this landscape that support wolverine habitat so well. And then kind of tucked up on the western side of the MPRA here, of the Western Arctic, are two other special areas, Teshekpuk Lagoon and Peard Bay. And both of these special areas also have incredible avian significance, but are also very, very important for marine mammals. For example, walrus haul out areas. So as we chug along and we go on our tour of the reserve, it's important to kind of bring you up to speed on the oil and gas threats and the context of kind of where oil and gas is within the region. So this is another map of Alaska's North Slope. You can kind of see on the right-hand side, on the eastern side of this map, is the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. In the center of the map is state of Alaska lands, which have been very heavily leased. And then again, the subject of our discussion here today is the National Petroleum Reserve, Alaska. And here you can again see that there are significant leases for oil and gas on the landscape. Currently, there's about 2.6 million acres of leases on the ground. And most of these leases have been procured over the last basically 5 to 7 years. But it's important to know and remember, the National Petroleum Reserve Alaska, the Western Arctic, it is a place cursed by its name. And while there might be 2.6 million acres of leases currently on the ground, there are only 2 very small oil and gas projects on federal lands on this landscape. And so all is not lost in terms of protecting and stewarding and managing a place of great ecological and cultural significance, that it's very fragile to climate change because it is a largely very functioning and very healthy landscape. So to kind of bring you up to speed even in a more refined manner, the big project that we're working on, and I think as you saw on Defender's announcement for tonight's paint night, is something called the Willow Master Development Plan. So the Willow Master Development Plan is basically a $6 billion new oil and gas field in the reserve here. As I mentioned, there's only 2 projects on the ground currently. One's called Greater Moose's Tooth 1, which is GMT1. One's called Greater Moose's Tooth 2, which is right here. But this Willow project would be all of this new infrastructure in red. And there's a lot of problems with this project for sure. Climate change implications are tremendous. An oil field of this size and the emissions that originate from this place would be incredibly significant as the world tries to constrain and manage greenhouse gases. But also you can see this project is an incursion into the Teshekpuk Lake special area. So currently, 1 or 2 pads are proposed within the boundaries of this place of great fragility and great conservation importance. And so you can kind of see that here. Another kind of big problem, and it kind of goes beyond the scale of Willow itself, is what it means for future development in the region. And so oil and gas in Alaska's Arctic kind of is built out in incremental steps. It's called a step out approach even. And so that's basically when infrastructure moves to a place where new developments become economically viable. Building pipelines and roads is very expensive, but if you incrementally move along, those costs are offset and it becomes quite cheap to actually move forward with Arctic oil and gas development. And so Willow presents a huge problem in terms of further expansion of oil and gas within the region as well. And so in this map here, you can see that there are these kind of brown tannish polygons. And these are future prospective developments that we know of on the landscape. And so Willow, while here, can be built out to connect to West Willow or this Cassine. It can also connect down to Peregrine Fields, to Harpoon, and to these other exploration fields further west. And so Willow is an enabling feature on the landscape that would enable or facilitate additional oil and gas on the ground. And that's another reason why it's of great concern. But I think it's important, to think about the MPRA in a more positive light. And, before I kind of wrap up and we kind of dive into some more specific, questions and answers, I want to make sure that, you all are coming in and videoing in, and zooming in from the far corners of the country, New York and Florida and Illinois and California, and I'm up here in Alaska. But we're all connected to the MPRA. And so this is a pretty neat example to kind of leave you with in terms of how this landscape and its values and its features are of global significance. And so this is a Kupaluk site up northeast of the Teshekpuk Lake Special Area. And it's just a very positive thing I kind of like to point people's attention to. So the Kupaluk site it's part of the East Asian Australasian Flyway Partnership Network. And so this is an effort to kind of stitch together the world's great important migratory stopover sites for migratory birds. And so this site, northeast of Teshekpuk Lake, was established in 2016 and brings birds to, connects birds from the far corners of the planet together. And so many of the birds from the Kupaluk site actually then leave this region when it's icy and cold and travel down to the coasts of southern Japan in the wintertime, and then come back up here in the more seasonable summer and springtime. And mostly that's for dunlin, Arctic dunlin, which is an amazing migratory bird that connects people from Japan to the MPRA, and across the whole East Asian Australasian flyway all the way down to places like New Zealand and Australia. And so it's just an important place to kind of pause and reflect that, I think we'll get a handle on the oil and gas context within the region. I think that's a place where, the great folks at Defenders and Audubon and our colleagues across the conservation community are digging in. But it's also a place to realize that you all have a stake in, and that it's a place of importance for a lot of folks around the planet as well. So that was a very quick and kind of a rapid fire explanation and discussion of what the Western Arctic is about, its values and its threats. And really, I think now we can just kind of crack it open and we can have a bit of a discussion if you're all interested.
Thanks, David. That was really great. A lot of really good information in a very short time. So, also, if nobody really has questions, David, if you don't mind dropping your email in the chat box, and then if people do have follow-up questions and stuff, they can email you, or if they want to learn more, I'm sure you have some links that you could send them. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us and sharing all that information. That was great. I'm a bird nerd, so I love talking about birds.
Yeah, we went down to the bird festival.
Yeah, the Shorebird Festival was pretty great this year. Birds were a little slow coming in because we had such a long winter.
Yeah, I'd be lazy too, but not that.
Let's see.
Oh,
So it looks like
Nicole,
there's
you
a
have a
question. Oh,
I do. Thanks, David, for seeing my hand go up. Tell me, Audubon has important bird areas, right? And aren't there some that are in the, that encompass the National Petroleum Reserve, Alaska?
Definitely. Yeah, there are hundreds and hundreds of important bird areas identified across Alaska, both onshore and in a marine context. And yeah, there are several within the MPRA. Most of them overlap with the special areas. Dease Inlet might be an exception. Dease Inlet is this place just kind of west of Teshekpuk Lake. But more or less, they all overlap with the special areas within the landscape. Does that answer your question, Nicole?
Yeah, perfect. And I think it's important, for everyone to know how the science has kind of borne out on this, and that these are highly valuable bird areas along with other wildlife species.
I agree. David, there was a question in the chat. Can the various environmental organizations purchase oil leases?
That's a great question. If only we could. It's been attempted in several contexts around the country. It's illegal, frankly, and to be completely honest and direct, for conservation groups to purchase leases, or anyone who doesn't have an intent to develop the resource specifically. But it is increasingly getting attention that oil and gas companies can pay very, very little money to secure the rights to develop these resources when the conservation and cultural values are much, much more valuable. And so I think, you can buy a lease for almost a cup of coffee in some contexts. And so I think that perversion is becoming increasingly identified especially as we're in this, climate emergency, climate crisis that we are in, that conservation values and keeping these ecosystems whole and intact and connected and functioning is way more valuable than basically giving them away for pennies on the dollar to oil and gas companies.
Thanks for answering that, David. That was very helpful. Yeah, we do need to change that, right?
Yeah, fire away though, team. If you have any other questions, definitely pop them in the chat there, or I can hear you all pretty well too.
Yeah, and we might continue moving on, but if there is another question, David, feel free to answer in the chat so that everybody can see it. And then I think Carrie's gonna keep plugging along here. Everybody's canvas should be dry,
Yeah.
so
Let's hope everyone's canvas is dry. All right, so we're gonna put on to are we back highlighted before?
Oh,
So they can actually
let
see
me
this, right?
spotlight for everyone. All right.
Cool. All right, so you're gonna want to lay out on your palettes. You're gonna want some yellow, your green, red, brown, and so this is kind of how I like to lay out my palette when I'm painting a variety of colors in kind of weird ways. So the way that the strips help me is I can grab a clean section of color without muddying the whole pie. When you just do circles, you can kind of get into the whole thing. So what I can do is I can take this full strip and pull it into the yellow and divide it half and half. So that's kind of a useful tip. And then if you're painting for a long series and you're kind of fiddling around, a useful tip also is to have a little spray bottle, or what I do is that way it's less things to bring with me. I have a toothbrush because I use that for like doing textures on my canvas, but you can dip it into clean water, right? And then spritz your board, and that keeps them wet for a long time. So say you're about to walk away and you're like, oh, I'm just walking away for 10 minutes. So you just spritz your acrylic paints with a little bit of water, make sure they're fully covered. You can walk away and you won't come back to a crusted over piece of skin on top of your acrylics as much. So, all right, so we're going to start off with that same big brush that we had earlier, and we're going to be painting this back section through here. So I'm going to be doing I'm going to make a green brown with kind of like, I'm not going to completely mix it together. And the reason I'm going to do this is because I want the variety to kind of show like the different grass sections by kind of mixing it dirty, I guess. Dirty mixing? Yeah.
Dirty
Okay.
mixing.
Sounds like it's a like the Dirty Dancing song, but not quite. Okay. So I'm going to just get in here and make a nice okay. Make myself a nice green and yellow, but because it's farther away, we're going to once again lean into that atmospheric perspective and kind of make it muddier. We're going to use the color wheel for this, and we're going to add in a little bit of red. Now, red takes down the saturation of our green. So that kind of helps us make it look not as bright as what we're going to be painting in front of it. And so it gives us definition. So you're just going to take little bits of green, little bits of red and mix it into like kind of a brownish color. You could go in full brown to your colors, but I like to add, when it comes straight out of the tube, browns and stuff could not add as much red as you may need. So the red straight out of the tube is a lot more helpful. So, all right, so I got a nice big kind of muddy pile. I've got some sections in there. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna be plotting out a big long line just directly under that light section that I had going on. So I'm gonna err on the side of going a little bit lower than that because I can always bring it up. So I'm gonna pull in.
Do they have to use the big brush or can they use the smaller
You can
brush?
use a smaller one if you like that. If you're more comfortable with smaller brushes, go for it. The reason I'm going to use this big brush is because we have a lot of swath of green to cover first. And so, and so I'm just using the big one because it's a lot of background to paint. And I just want to make sure we have enough time to get through the whole painting. So I just paint a whole section of that green, okay? And so what this first layer does is kind of get rid of that bright blue underneath, okay? So I got that muddy-ish color painted across there. Go ahead and get through, you're gonna do that. And you're just gonna paint a section, I guess, that's about 2 inches thick. So you could even put your paintbrush, if you have a 2-inch brush, you could paint that just with one brush going at that. And you're going to cover that whole thing, okay? And go ahead and get that accomplished, and we'll come back in a minute or so.
And just as a
Yeah.
just as a heads up, we usually like to do this at the end of the paint night. We like everybody to come on camera, and I'm giving you a heads up right now, just in case like you're like, oh no, there's no way I can go on camera. That's totally fine. But we love seeing everybody's art when we're finished. So just throwing that out there. And I just wanted to say that because we had a very, very shy group last time and nobody came on camera at the end. And so we were like, did anybody paint what we just went through? And we love seeing it. Carrie loves seeing everybody's thing. So.
All right. Give you guys some time to work through that, and we'll back on in a couple minutes, okay? All right, folks, hopefully that gave you guys enough time to get that strip painted down. All right, and we're gonna add another one on top of that, and that's gonna give us a little bit more depth. So we're gonna just add a little bit darker on top. So we're gonna add in a little bit more of that red than you did with the yellow this time. And you're just gonna kind of swipe at it and kind of make some textures. You don't want the whole thing to be the same color. And it's okay if you're not completely straight, because you know, those hills and like you can have valleys of in the distance. So it's okay if your line is not completely straight on top. That is perfectly fine. The grassy places of the world are not always completely straight. So all right, so I'm gonna paint in some darker on top of that, okay? And you can even, if say you go over it with too much darkness, you can come in with a little bit of light and just do some light streaking across, okay? let you guys do that for another couple minutes and kind of, you want to get this point down to the point where you're really happy with it and you're going to be done with it and ready to move on. So we'll give you guys another 5 minutes to get it really happy with. Once we're done with this, we're kind of step away from it and we're going to move on to the foreground. And it gets, the more you mess with the background after you've done the foreground, the harder it's going to be. So I've got some nice brown that I built in with my green and my red mixed together with some light areas. So we'll let you guys get to that point and we'll give you 5 or so minutes to paint that. Okay. All right. All right, folks. We're gonna then take our our more medium size brush. This one's a filbert, but if you have a square brush, it doesn't really matter. This one's about, oh gosh, what is that? Less than an inch. I don't know, but so about that size, about the size of a finger for me. So I'm gonna dip it in the water, make sure to keep my brush healthy. I'm gonna take a little bit of black. Let's move this. I'm gonna mix that little bit of black in with what I had just created for this, that brownish, I'm just gonna pull some of that over here and mix in some black. And what that's gonna be is our little shadow at the shoreline. Let's see. It's not super dark. It's kind of like a greenish brownish mud color, okay? And what we're gonna do is we're just gonna put that at the very edge of this green space, okay? And that's gonna be our shadow of our shoreline, where it kind of, where the grasses meet the shore back in here. So it's just gonna be, you want it to have that green that we had previously in here. That way it pulls it in. So we don't want full on black stuff. Black to be on anything that we're not trying to highlight and bring attention to. So that's why we mix it with the green that we had back here. Okay, so I just did a small section right there because that's where my window is going to be into like that back area. So go ahead and mix that black with a little bit of that green that you had and get that lined in there.
And hopefully everybody's keeping up and we're not going too fast or too slow. Let us know.
Give us a quick thumbs down if we're going too fast. That's easy and quick to do because then you're like I'm running behind. I don't have time to tell them it's going too fast. Or like a quick thumbs up if you're still doing good.
Or feel free to use the chat function.
Yeah.
Be like, what color are we doing again? That's usually my problem. I'm like, we're mixing what colors again, Carrie? Okay.
All right, folks, we're gonna go back in with that brush that we had from earlier that we did that first swath of green. And we're gonna pick where we want these side shelves to come in. Now you don't want to start going like a straight line like this. You kind of want to, I like to think of it as kind of like a triangle coming down like this. So this direction. So we want to leave a little bit of space over here. This little like kind of almost like a V like that. We want to come and we want to arch in, and you can make it as subtle of an arch as you want. Just think of it as the bigger the arch, the bigger the hill going down into it. And so we're going to do that little arch going down, and then we're going to move sideways like this in straight lines, moving to the side. And what this does is when you're looking down at a piece, your eye sections things into levels. Does that make sense? Like doing it this way, like levels like this. And so to convey things moving backwards, it's easiest, the easiest trick to do is to do things backwards in straight lines. Just to kind of hack your way into it, I guess. It's an easy little thing. And so I like to kind of block that out on that side first. Leave it kind of like that, and then I'll work on this side. And I don't want it to meet at the same point that this one did. I'll shift it back a little bit, or I'll move it up a little bit. And you can kind of see how I can also mess with it even after I put down the line. So I'm going to move this one up a little bit. And move it like that. And I'm going to do the same thing where I do like the shelf things off the side. And what that's going to just do for me is just like see where my levels are. And I'm going to connect this piece of land to this one by just going off a little bit, and then I'll come back onto the page, moving in a straight line again, and then that will be another little hill, right? And I'll come and I'll just kind of keep it like that, and then I'll just brush. When I get to this section over here, we'll work on some other stuff here. So you're going to kind of plot and plan. You can, if you are super nervous about how the shape is going to be, you can go in and plot and plan with a pencil if you'd like. I think sometimes you can kind of work too much, get too much into your head if you do that. So that's why I like the big brush going in with big strokes, you know. So
It's more natural. Like we're painting landscape, so
yeah, we don't want to get too much in our heads. The grass isn't thinking about how it looks. Okay.
yeah.
So, and then once I have those sections kind of planned out, I'm just going to block it in with green as a backfilling color to cover up that bright blue. And once I get to that point, then I'll pause and let you guys catch up. And we'll give you a little bit of time to plot your colors and that type of stuff, because I want you guys to be able to pick the way that your waterway's working. So go ahead and fill those in real quick, and then we'll turn the time for you guys to paint with that. So I'm just filling in those sections that I made, just so I can go in with the textures on top and not have to worry so much about covering all the inches of blue. But I'm just going in with just green in general. I'm not worried too much about the color being varied all that much yet. I'm more just worried about getting that color blocked in and colored all over. So I'm putting in my blocks of color just kind of randomly. Okay. And it's okay if the edges are messy. We're going to be going in with the textured brush over the top of them here in a bit. So, okay. All right, so I'm gonna leave it at that point, and I'm gonna let you guys get to this point. So you want to come arching in with your points. You don't want them anything to meet kind of at the same level. Like this one ends here and this one ends over here. So you kind of want to create some shiftiness. So, all right, and if you have any questions, put them in the chat. We're gonna leave you to do this probably for a good, I'd say 10 minutes, so that you guys have a little bit of time with it, so you can pick it out a little bit.
Give us a thumbs up if you finish before then, and then we can kind of see if the majority is ready to move on.
All right, sounds good. We'll give you just talk in a sec. All right, folks. Hopefully we're tracking along, and now we're going to work on the texture of our grass. Okay, so you can create individual textures utilizing like your smaller brushes and such, but for our case, we're going to use a fan brush, or you can make your own textured brush. So if you have a really old brush, like I have one here, this is a really old brush, and I can cut into it and make shapes into that if I wanted to. And then also you can take a toothbrush even, like, and you can chop into it with scissors going down like this if you don't have a fan brush. So those are some options for you if you don't have a fan brush, or you can come back to this section with a small one after we've done it and add those in individually. That will take you a long time. So, but the sections that we're going to be painting, for the most part, that have the grass, you can focus back on after you've learned the section. So, so we're going to take our fan brush. This is a fan brush. It's thin looking at it from this way, and then it spreads out like that. So we're going to get it wet. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to utilize the same color ranges that we utilized here, but we're going to add more yellows into it and less of our reds and browns added in. And what that's going to do is bring it forward on top of this back section, okay? So go ahead and get your paintbrushes wet, and we'll go in first. I'm going to grab a bunch of my green, and I'm going to add some yellow into it. I'm just going to mix on top of what I already have painted or utilized color-wise, because that'll bring it in and bring it in a little bit of that color from that red right over there. And so it'll kind of homogenize the whole section. So I'm then going to move up, and if you add a little bit of water, you'll get more of the grass type things, and you can kind of move your brush up in like a zigzaggy motion. Kind of, you don't want it all to be super flat across the top. Can you see that?
It's pretty light.
Okay, I'm going to make mine a little bit more drastic, so hopefully you guys can see it a little bit more. But it's going to be a very subtle change between the two systems on your own painting. Okay, so I'm going to make mine a little more drastic so that you guys can see it well on camera, but it doesn't have to be as drastic as me on your own canvas. So I'm going to.
Your grass doesn't have to look like it's dying.
Yeah, the grasses come in all shapes and colors and sizes.
So we're going into fall time.
Yeah, fall grass, summer grass.
If you painted red, it could be all fall grass.
There's red grass.
There's red grasses and lots of mosses up on the tundra up there.
All right, so we're just going to kind of shift our colors back and forth. So I have like a more greener green over here, and I have a more yellow green over here. So I'm going to kind of shift between those. So if I did green over here, the next layer that I'm going to be painting on, I'm going to shift a more yellow green on top of this one and more of a dark green on top of this one. And you're going to just, that way you have some contrast back behind it. And then I'm going to show you guys the toothbrush real quick. So if I wanted to do toothbrush, I can just kind of use it like this and kind of shift it sideways. And you can do that. Lots of options for that. Okay, so I'm going to do more of a dark green on top of that one to create that texture. The only thing with the toothbrush is you can scrub too hard and take off your underpainting. That's the one disadvantage of doing that, so be light. Okay, and then also for one of the other options, being the scraggly brush, right? Yes. So I'm going to do more of a light one over on top of this side because previously I'd done dark over here. So I'm going to grab that light one, my scraggly brush, kind of flick up, nice flicking movements, put it down, flick up, put it down, flick up. So, and I just cut into like one of these cheap brushes, 1-inch brushes from like Home Depot to create just a random texturized section. All right. So those are kind of some options for you if you don't have a fan brush, okay? And we'll go back to the fan brush for myself because I'm going to be lazy. And it's a little bit easier with the fan brush. So, all right. Okay. So as I get to my edges, I want to create things that go over that hill and kind of create like a little sectioning. But I also want to leave gaps for the blue to show through. And as I get over to this section where I have the blue showing through, we're gonna make sure that we don't cover up, like we're not gonna go out all the way up here with it. We're just gonna come just to the very edge of it because we're gonna come back in with some darker colors and work this. So give you guys some time to paint through, and we're just gonna texturize the whole thing. Go in with, you wanna make some shapes, some different colors differently. You can go back in with a darker section and add some more red. Like if you have like a darker patch back in through here, maybe. You can make some darker sections. We're just gonna be adding texture because the way your fan brush is moving, or the way your brush is moving, is gonna be what you're seeing, essentially. Okay. And the same thing on this side, just moving up on the grasses. Making sure to keep all the colors mixing in at all times so that you can see all the different shades and beautifulness. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Trying to keep both sides. So if I do a color on this side, I'll also put it over here and maybe like over here, just so I can show like, oh yeah, this grass has grass over here. This one has some grass over here. Just kind of coming up through the painting wherever you'd like. Very free form, this grass. Very free. Very relaxing to do it. It's not that picky. It's not picky. All right, I'm going to be painting with you guys for a little bit, and we're going to continue on that for next, 5 to 10 minutes. And so you just work through and just add that texture, okay? All right. Cool beans. Hopefully we get that texture down on those grasses. We're going to add a little bit of texture going down into the water as the reflection before we hit our next part. So while your brushes are still wet with that same color, you're going to take it about halfway through where you were putting those big strokes with our main brush, and you're just going to clip down just lightly so you just get a couple textured ends of grass coming down into the water. And then we're going to do our magic reflection divider thing. Trust me, it's going to look kind of muddy at first. Trust the process. You're just going to do some lines straight down, almost like it's hairy on both sides, okay? You just want to kind of mimic the shape, like if you had grass going like in this direction diagonally, you'll do it diagonally the other way coming down. So it's kind of a little bit of a mirrored image thing is what we're going for. Okay. All right. Coming through. All right, so got some reflections of the grass. So my grass went this way. So on this one, I'm going to do the exact inverted or mirrored image. So going the other way. And when we divide it, it's going to then show our lines that we divide it with. They're going to kind of show where the edge of that water meets that grass. Gives us a nice reflective look. So, give you guys another minute or so, and then we'll divide that up. Okay. All right, guys, we're gonna then divide our reflections. So we're gonna take that, remember that brown, black color that we have in the background. We're gonna mix some more of that. Take our little bit of black and a little bit of our green that we've been working with. And I have my flat brush. So I'm gonna pick about halfway between the top of my grass and then the bottom of my reflection. And you're just gonna come in and do some more of those sideways swipes, moving backwards. And what this does is just divides it and makes it look like the reflection, because you're gonna have shadow down towards the stalks, right? So what this does is just kind of gives that illusion of like we're doing the shadows. And you can kind of bring the shadows up and brush up a little bit with your little flat brush and kind of make those shadows stand out. So like this, you can go back in with your brush with the green if you mess up, and cover it back up too. So it's pretty forgiving because the grass line is not going to be perfectly straight. You don't have to worry about running it like perfectly because grass is very forgiving. We're just going to go in and we're just going to divide all those things and make them just a little bit darker towards those edges or towards the bottoms of the stalks. Okay, just going to brush it down into it, make it all nice and shadowy. All right, I'm going to do that for the next couple minutes. Okay, just outline hats. Okay, and if you went a little too overboard, like I went a little too much with the black over here, so I'm just gonna go back with the green once it's dry and just go over it again. So it's very forgiving, just kind of like that, and then kind of pushes it back. So that really helps when you do that. Okay, so don't worry if you mess up too much on the shadow. You can always go back and kind of edit it and add less, kind of like covering it up, like a good facelift, right? You know, I don't want to seem super bold. There you go. And just cover up that where you went too black, okay?
You can erase the lines just like that.
No more cozy. All right, we'll give you a minute on that, and then we're going to start in on some birds, okay? All right, one more minute and then we'll get working on these birds. All right, I'm having Jen take over so that you guys can get a close up of the details as we're working on these birds. So we're going to utilize these two brushes, your more pencil sized brush and then your slightly bigger one. And we're going to first use our bigger one and we're going to get some white because we're going to work on this trumpet swan. So the directions on like the piece to piece, like how to draw the swan is going to be located as a PDF that you can download. And I think it's part of the whole.
It was attached to the
Yeah,
invite.
it's attached to the invite. So if you want to go like really big or draw more details onto it, like you can totally, it's more detailed on the size and like how to do the exact trapezoidal shapes. Because brush strokes, I don't need to draw an entire shape, but you can draw more detailed ones based off the PDF. So I'm gonna take my white. I still had some left over from doing our background that's wet. So I'm gonna take that white and I'm going to be making, I think of that shape. It's almost like, so I'll do a straight line here and I kind of do a caddy, like a slightly shifted line here. What is this shape called?
Trapezoid?
Trapezoid? Is that like that?
Oh, trapezoid.
I should have looked up my geometry before doing this. Sorry. So I'm doing this shape here. We're gonna call it this shape. And I'm gonna fill that in with my white. And this is gonna be the main body of the swan, okay? So this trapezoidal, this top thing, and this bottom one are about the same length, okay? And then, pretty simply with my brush, and you can switch to your smaller pencil brush if you need to for doing the neck. But it's the cool part about this neck is it's not straight line from this point. It first starts from here and then it goes down slightly and then comes out. And the length of your trapezoid from this point to this point is about the same length as from the tip of this trapezoid to the end of where we're going to stop that neck of that swan. Okay, so we're going to just round that off on the end.
And hopefully I'm not making everybody sick by like the shaking. I'm trying to hold still.
Not good. All right, so that's the end of the swan neck. Okay, now we're going to switch to I'm going to switch back to my bigger brush to do the wings. And the wings, I like to think of it as if this is the bottom part of a K. I'm going to just do a line for the top of my K. Oh, sorry. Shifted slightly. I think I was bracing my arm off. So that's the top part of my K. And then the bottom of part of my K is going to be a little bit shorter. And that's kind of how I start it. It's just 2 lines, or maybe if it's easier to think about a clock, like this is the hour hand, this is the minute hand, coming straight out from the same point. Okay. And this will be the leading edge of our back wing. And this will be the leading edge of our, or the wing that's closest to us. Okay. I'm then going to make a little tiny shift at the top of that back wing. And I'm then going to connect it to the wing that's more towards us. Okay. So just another little trapezoidal shape. Okay. And then this one that was our minute hand, I'm going to make just a little scooch out using the width of my brush, and then come down a little bit, and then almost like just a slight degree out here and then back. So it's almost a square, but it's a little bit more triangular. Okay. So that's our basic shape of our skull. Yeah. It's kind of weird because you're kind of showing it from this side. So it's kind of angled.
No, like,
yeah, there you go. That's a little bit better.
Straight on.
Yeah. So that's going to be the basic shape of our swan. So if you've gotten to this point, you've done the hardest part. So we're gonna, sorry. So we've got our white shape painted in. We're gonna take a little bit of gray, and this gray is going to make our forewing come forward more and push the other one back. So we're gonna paint on top of this front one. We're just gonna paint our darkest part of our gray on that front part of that wing, because that's the strongest part. And then we're going to fade it a little bit out into our white.
Or if you do see like an all gray swan, that just means it's a juvenile.
Exactly. So you can have gray swans.
Mm-hmm.
Ugly duckling, right?
Yep.
Okay. So we have our gray wing and our white wing, because our light source is hitting this one and making it white, and this one is slightly covered, making it gray. Okay, cool. And then we're also going to bring that gray down into the body a little bit, down towards the tail area, right? And then we can leave this portion white, and then we're going to cover the underside of the neck with a little bit of gray. Okay. So that's kind of the basic of where the gray is going to go on our thing. So now we can go into our black. And I'm going to take my little brush for this portion. We're going to do the legs. And the legs tuck up nice and tight into the body of the swan. Oh, that's a little bit too much black. Hold on. Okay. They tuck up nice and tight into the body of the swan. And you just can kind of just do a line that fits underneath there. And it's just a little, like a smaller version of that trapezoidal shape, right? Not quite all the way to the end of the tail. You want to leave a little bit of white or gray there. And then for the nose, we're going to come up and we're going to just do a line through our circle-ish part, and then come down. Oh man, I got to scooch up closer because I'm a little too far. Sorry. A little too far. You can be doing details. Hold on. I got to paint over that. Well, no, that's good. Okay. Sorry. You're going to do a line, and then you're going to come out for the beak. I'm going to shift mine a little bit because my brush went a little sideways. It's wonky on me. I'm sorry, guys. So you're going to have a line coming out of a triangle, essentially. That's going to be the finishing part of your beak. And then the eye comes up. They kind of have like that looks terrible. Hold on. I'm sorry.
Hold on.
Yeah. Let's go over here. I'm sorry. My brush went a little wonky because my thing slid out.
Kind of the shape.
I apologize. So let me do this again.
This guy just smashed into a wall.
I know.
That's what happened with him.
I'm sorry.
See, look, not everybody's perfect. Carrie's not actually
I
perfect.
know.
Sorry, Carrie.
No, it's okay. I
Throw
just
you under the bus.
trying to get it done.
First time she's really messed up. I'm just kidding.
I know. I'm just kidding. Like totally slipped out from underneath me. I had my arm braced.
Okay, the swan
happens.
sneezed.
I'm like, oh. Okay. That's okay. We can cover it. all good.
That's the beauty of painting with
We can cover
acrylics.
it up.
It dries quick
Dries
too.
real quick, and we can cover that up. So I'm just gonna cover that with my background color. So I'm going back in and correcting. Essentially that shape. So now we're gonna work on our loons. So loons are just a half moon of gray. So we still have our gray mixed. And so it's gonna be a half moon of gray. Okay. So we're gonna go a straight line across in our water of our gray.
And they can put them, you guys can put them anywhere you
Yeah,
want.
you can put them anywhere you find that you like them. Okay. So we're gonna do a half moon of gray right there. And then their necks they kind of are leaned back ever so slightly. So we're just gonna come up and back like that.
Let's get a little closer here.
Wonder if it helps if this is dimmed out. No, just kidding.
No,
Undo
it's
that. All right. And then we are going to then just do a little bit of a circle, okay? Or oval, I guess is more correct. A little bit of an oval at the top of that little line. That is gonna be the head, okay? It's not showing up very well. I'm gonna make it a little darker for them so they can see it.
Okay.
Make ours a little bit darker for you guys. Hopefully that will help with the seeing of it.
And you really don't have to put birds in if you don't want to put birds in, but
That's true, yeah. We can just leave it with the beautiful grasslands.
we just wanted to highlight that there's a lot of birds in the NPRA.
Yes, lots of options for you guys. Okay, so now we have the half moon, our little bit hashback, and then our oval. Pretty simple shapes. And then we're gonna go in with our black for our nose, and hopefully this one I don't screw up. I'm gonna brace against the canvas this time. And just do a line coming out. It's just a basic line that gets ever so slightly thicker as it gets closer to the nose. They have a pretty thin beak. And it's slightly shorter than the oval that you did, okay? And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put a little bit of gray or darker black dots on the back to create that. And a little bit of an eye right here. And there's lots of different types of loons. The one we're gonna be making today has a red chest. So we're gonna just bring up that red a little bit. I love bringing in some highlights of red. Okay, so I got some red on my brush, and I'm just gonna hit the right underneath the cheek or right underneath that oval. I'm gonna hit that. Just a little bit of red. Okay.
Like, hopefully it's good video here.
Yeah, it is kind of hard to get. Birds are small things. So, okay. So we're gonna let that dry for a little bit and then we'll come back to it. All right, moving on while that's drying. And go switch back to our larger brush. And I'm gonna keep it gray. This one's gonna be we're gonna do, what was it? Eider.
An eider.
An eider. So I'm gonna start off with 2 lines coming pretty much straight across from each other, right? Sorry,
Sorry.
knock the camera with
Let me
my.
get out of the way.
So 2 straight lines.
I'm gonna
Okay.
back up for size wise so you can also see.
That have little hashes down towards their. So it kind of looks like angry eyebrows a little bit.
Yeah.
So a little bit of angry eyebrows. And then we're gonna do like a little circle right here in the center. And so this, if you have the chance, look up a male eider. They are just such interesting. They kind of look like clown birds. Instead of clownfish, they kind of, it was very interesting. I had never heard of an eider before.
There's
I was
several
like, man.
species. So there's the king eider and then there's the Steller's eider.
Yes.
So there's different varieties that we have up here in
Kind of like,
Alaska.
almost like ducks and goose combined.
Yeah.
So, all right, and then I'm gonna just take a little bit on the wings and tip them up ever so slightly,
Make them aerodynamic.
make them a little aerodynamic, bring them down into the body. Okay, so the tops of the wings are gonna be a little bit whiter. So I'm gonna, now that I have that painted on, I'm gonna take some white and just hit the very tops. And this once again takes a little bit of a steadier hand than I'm currently got apparently. Okay. I don't know why my hands are shaking so much. Right? Okay. So we got our whites on top. The reason we're doing that before I paint the head is I want the white to go back behind the head. So, all right. So we're going to take our gray that we had for the body, and we're going to do an oval over the top of that white part that we painted. So that pushes it farther behind. And then we're going to paint a beak right there here in a second. I just am blocking it out so I can kind of see it. All right, I like that. Perfect. So it's an oval with a little beak coming out of the bottom of it because he's looking over towards our swan over there. Okay, so we're gonna let that dry, and since I think my swan is now dry, we're gonna work back in another circle as we go around drying stuff. All right. Okay. Get my brushes nice and clean for the white. Don't transpose anything. All right, so I'm gonna re-hit some whites on top, kind of cover up that blue. And then hit a little bit of white on the top of that wing. That'll bring it up nice and bright.
Oh,
Yeah, helps to have just a little bit. Okay, and then make this part up just a little bit darker to help enhance it. So it's a little bit darker. Oh, sorry,
Sorry.
totally smacking each other back over here. Are you doing close, tight work, right? It's
Yep.
hard to, so it's dark right here, and then it flows into here. I'm just filling in those slightly blue spots. Going back in. Okay. Hopefully that's drier now and I fix the face. Okay.
And you can always rewatch this. This is being recorded. So if you are like, I can't paint any more birds, it's what time is it on the East Coast?
Yeah.
8, 9,
Like
10 o'clock.
hard to
Almost 10 o'clock. What is Saturday night?
repainting the background of the face that you messed up. I want to skip through it. So
Yeah.
so I'm just covering up my mistake real quick, and then that way I can teach you guys the
Look at that.
All right. I'm just gonna cover the whole thing, actually. Yeah. Okay. Just cover the whole thing, and then that way I
Have
can
this
cover
one.
it from the beginning for you guys. Because the recording will be better.
He's flying into another dimension.
He is. He's got his head.
See the rest of his body.
Have a swan toast. Okay.
I actually heard it tastes a lot like turkey.
Turkey. Okay. I thought
Yeah,
you
a
were
lot
gonna
of
say
people
chicken
actually
for a
use swan for their bird roast, their turkey roast.
second. Oh, okay.
At least they did
For,
in Utah. Because you could go hunting You could
Okay.
not hunt trumpeter swans, but you could hunt tundra swans. So
Oh.
we're painting, this is a trumpet, no. Yeah, this is a trumpeter swan. The tundra swans have a yellow
Oh.
eye lore right by their eye.
I was like, I know there's a difference. I can't remember it.
Yeah, trumpeters
Okay.
are typically larger.
So that's gonna dry. So I just freshened up the whites and the darks. So you want it darker around this one, then optimally you would have a head, but we'll go back to that in just a second. Okay. All right, so this one should be a little bit more dry, and I can get that red a little bit brighter, I think, on his chest now. Kind of got to rotate around stuff sometimes when you're painting. So a little bit redder of a chest, and then it has a little bit of white underneath that red chest. So we're gonna take a white and we're gonna dab it right underneath. And I actually even have red eyes. They're kind of more maroon and it's hard to see from distance, but I'm just gonna add a little bit of red just to like.
Loons are pretty cool. They have a really pretty song, kind of haunting. Yeah,
That was a terrible loon impression, but
I can't do it.
I can't do it either, so. Got a little bit of a red eye and then a red chest with a little bit of white underneath.
My focus. Okay, there we go.
And we're gonna just, for kicks and giggles, we'll let you paint a loon baby. So the loon babies are really quite simple. They are just a little bit smaller of a little round thing, plus a little bit of a blob of a head. They're kind of very fluffy, is the thing is. Well, at this point in their lives, they're very fluffy. Not puppies.
That's all
Chicks.
baby birds are.
Very fluffy.
Little
and
poofs.
Little poofs. They don't quite have the red on their chest yet, but they do have a little bit of white. And they do have their black beaks. So you can do that. A little black, little boop, boop, a little dot. Just a little fluff. You can do a little bit more white. I'll let that dry because he's pretty wet.
Probably
So I can't
blended.
really do the white quite yet. Okay, so we're gonna move back up to the eider. So I'm gonna make some orange real quick for my eider's beak. And I do that by mixing my yellow and my red together. And what did I have to do? Oh my gosh, I did yellow. Oh. Okay. All right, there we go. Need to beat the orange. Caution, cone, orange. Maybe not quite that much. All right, so I got my orange going. That's just red and yellow mixed together. If you have an orange and you can cheat, you are encouraged to cheat. All right, so we're gonna paint over our little gray part that we did to kind of give us a little bit of shape. Okay. Do a little triangle coming out, and it kind of swoops underneath the chin a little bit on these eiders. Okay. Okay. All right. Sorry, I had to consult with my bird expert real quick. So, all right. So we're gonna take our brownish black color. And I'm gonna paint back behind that beak, make it a little bit darker. We're gonna leave a section of lighter color up at the top for the eye area. We want it to be just a little bit like a sad face, like a little slope downwards. So at the top of that, we're gonna come down like that. Okay. That'll give me a nice shape. Cool. All right. And I'm gonna make his underbelly that same, like, we're gonna just add a little bit underneath, kind of highlight that orange a little bit and kind of come underneath and darken up his underside a little bit.
And we do know we're just at about time.
Sorry about that.
And feel free, if you
Not
have
the
to
little
leave.
birds to paint.
Yeah, if you have to leave right on the top of the hour, like that's
Totally
fine.
get that.
Look for the link, the YouTube link that will be posted on the Facebook page. You can also email Nicole, and I'll drop her email in the chat. And thanks for joining us. Carrie's gonna keep painting some birds. I'm gonna set the camera down and put the email in the chat real quick.
So I just painted white into that section that we left open on the eye. So it was a little wet still in the last pass I did, so it didn't show up as bad. Okay.
Yeah, thanks everyone for joining. We're glad you had fun, and we would love to see your paintings if you're brave enough.
Everyone's probably like,
Like, no.
strong face yet. We're coming to it. I kind of want to do a big version of it. So they
Oh,
can see it.
Yes, people are sharing.
I can see it.
Hold on, I'm gonna remove my spotlight because I'm gonna change this view into a gallery. Leslie is sharing. Awesome.
I did a little bit different.
Yeah, no, it's
Some
good.
That's okay.
green,
That's okay.
green winged teals,
Oh, nice. Oh, wow.
watercolor. But it was a wonderful demonstration. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for joining. If anybody else wants to come on and show their paintings. Oh, we have another camera coming on. Maybe. Oh,
Ooh, that looks really good.
oh,
Oh, I
nice.
love it. Love it. We'll finish the face in a minute of that swan.
Oh, yeah.
I got it.
Awesome.
Theirs looks really good. I like it. Black and
Yeah.
white. Oh, yeah. Look at that.
Brian's
That looks amazing.
awesome.
Ooh, I love it.
Oh, you have very pretty colors.
Yes, very nice. Good job.
Awesome.
It's amazing.
Thanks for sharing. If you do want to, you can also send a photo of your painting to Nicole.
Because I know we're still probably gonna fidget with it.
Yeah, we'll probably stay on for maybe another 5, maybe 5-10 minutes.
Swan face still, so we got
Yeah.
a little bit.
But then we'll probably end it, and then you can all watch it. And it might take a couple weeks before you see that painting. Oh, Marion, there we
Ooh,
go.
that looks
That's really
good.
pretty.
I love it. Good job with the shifting of the shoreline. Good job.
And you could literally fill your canvas with birds because there's
Like,
so many birds.
The shorebird, the little ones. I did drop a PDF of the shorebird ones. It's just a little like
Cotton ball on
teardrop.
sticks.
Yeah, it's a teardrop with a little bit of a head. So
That's awesome. Thank you all for sharing
wanted
and
to
joining us
focus on the
tonight.
land tonight. With some birds in there.
And then
Okay.
I will. I don't know if anybody else wants to share, but I'll go spotlight for everyone and then do some camera work.
We gotta shift back and forth, right?
Hopefully, I didn't make any of you sick moving the camera so much.
Great.
There you go.
So, going back onto the face of the swan. I'm gonna get nice.
Here we go. There's our lighting.
I'm gonna get a new block of
Thanks
black.
for joining.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining. If you do have to leave, I apologize. Looking forward to seeing you guys sign off. Okay, so I'm gonna take my black. We're gonna do our beak. We're gonna follow the edge of the line of the cheek, and we're gonna come down in a line where it's very slight. It's a very small pointed thing, and then we're gonna take that bottom one and we're gonna slightly widen it, and then when we get that slightly widened angle, we're gonna bring that up towards the face for the swan. Okay, and then there's just a little eye right there. Okay.
And don't ever
If
be
you're-
embarrassed by your paintings. Like,
And if your hand slips, you just get to paint over it again, right?
there we go. Now our swan can see where he's going. He or she.
I know, right? And then just make a little bit taller of a little head.
It probably also doesn't help that I have a camera in your face
I
while
know.
you're trying to paint.
It definitely, the elbow space is definitely an interesting
Oh,
combative thing. So,
we'll come a little closer again,
okay.
just so you can see. Okay.
And I'm very random, so you're like, where is the freaking pencil now? First now, where's it going? Okay, there we go. There we go.
And there you go. You have the NPRA photo with some birds.
Some birdies.
You can
Oh,
add like
gotta
6
add
more
eyes.
babies.
Yeah. Forgot to do an eye on
Oh.
the spider. Oops. The eye is just a little black eye.
Either is blind. Now he can see.
You can make them as big as you want or as small as you want. If you are struggling with fine lines, that's why I said have a Sharpie with you, because you could do the Sharpie for the face of the swan if you know, you needed a little bit steadier of a tool that you're more used to. That's why the Sharpie is there in case you want to utilize that. Or you can use it to do the outlines of the birds. Okay.
Let the lighting adjust. And there you have your swan.
Okay. And then we got our little sandpipers you can do. It's a little dot or a little teardrop with moving some brown on the top of that. And then they got little black beaks or shorebird. What did I call it?
Shorebird. I mean,
Oh,
a
not
sandpiper is
apologize.
a shorebird.
I don't know. I'm sorry.
I can't remember
I
if
always
sandpiper's
call
still
them
up there.
sandpipers. I don't.
Yellow
Yeah.
legs. This
Yeah,
is-
yellow legs.
yeah,
Yes,
yellow
we'll call them yellow
legs.
legs. And then you can do some legs in yellow. And then I just added some black back behind them to add a little bit of shadow. And then we did a female one, so it's brown theme. So we did brown underneath instead of the black like we did on that one. And then the face is just facing forward. So I just did 2 eyes on the sides and a little bit of a beak right there.
It's a mating pair.
Yeah. He's looking over at her.
Eiders.
He's like, he can't take his eyes off her. So
Awesome.
all right.
Cool. Well, thanks for joining us tonight. We'll probably wrap it up and
That way,
sign off, but you have access to those PDFs. If you,
yeah, the PDFs are far more detailed on what shapes you need to do for each head and such.
yeah,
Because it's far simpler to show you guys step by step with that is slower to follow along with PDFs for sure.
and thanks for joining.